Y'all, welcome back to Kentucky Fried Wargaming, where two guys who aren't qualified to talk about anything decide to talk about a game with hard math and chance. I'm Joe.
And I'm John.
And on this episode, we considered talking about LVO and the big tournaments and all the topical stuff. But instead, we thought we'd talk about our own hobby interests and kind of follow where the inspiration took us. And that led to a whole episode topic that will have some follow-up episodes over the next couple of weeks. We wanted to take this episode to kind of talk about that feeling when you see a review or a preview or a cartoon or listen to a book or a content creator watch a YouTube video on a particular faction or model or game, and it just grabs you and pulls you along. John, I assume you might vaguely be familiar with this concept?
Yeah, some might say that I've been following that for years.
Yeah, chasing the serotonin. Totally normal, I'm sure. But I think most hobbyists have felt that multiple times. And there's kind of this weird crossroads when you feel it. Do you lean into whatever that pull is, or do you try to resist it to stay on whatever you were doing before? And that can be a difficult decision. So we thought we'd take a whole episode to talk about it. And we're going to have a feeling we're going to be talking about it for the next month as well. And it's going to tie directly into our hobby time and games played. All right, John, hobby time. What you been doing over there, bud?
So, made some more progress on the Beast of Chaos. Not a ton, to be super honest. It's mostly building everything I've been making, doing a little bit of painting, and then I fell down the rabbit hole of Gene Stealer Cult more.
Oh God, yeah.
Started working on all that. Got
Heard
a whole
the call of the star gods.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to. As it's gotten colder, I've been running into more problems with my printer. And so I've had to start diagnosing things about how it works and everything else. It's still functional, like I'm still printing what I need, but it's a lot of work to get used to the ebb and flow of that workflow, and also learning how to slice things correctly in the slicer. And it can be time consuming, and it's very satisfying, but that's where a lot of my hobby's has been like preparing files, printing files, cleaning the stuff, building it, looking at it and going neat, or like, what do I need to change? Doing some research on like how to change stuff. But as I'm dialing that in and getting better at it, it's starting to go faster. I've gotten to the point where I'm ordering resin once a week as I print stuff, not just for like 40K and Age of Sigmar, but also just random stuff I want to print, like BattleTech minis and stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, I think much like the episode topic, like you got grabbed, you got good by them crazy Mad Max Star God cultists.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take much. Dirt bikes and goat carts
meets Innsmouth. Yeah.
Like, what if creepy Lovecraftian cults meet Mad Max and give them sawed-off shotguns?
What if?
Yeah, it's great.
It got you. They're very cool. The rules just make my head explode.
Yeah, that's the other reason I like them, though, is I want to say like a whole bunch of words at you when we play a game in the future, and you just go, I'm going to need you to explain it to me like I'm 5.
I'm going to need you to give me the abbreviated version. What happens to me? Like, tell me what dies, all right? Just what's the outcome?
Well, like, the best way I can describe Gene Stealer Cult is that they're like a Rube Goldberg machine that I am constantly trying to move the parts out and let you blow up certain parts of my machine and then replace them with other parts and go, ha-ha!
Yeah, and I imagine the games that they win are when they swap out the right parts, but in the games they lose, the critical piece dies.
Or like the games they lose is because somebody, cough cough custodies, walks in with a hammer and just smashes the whole thing to pieces and goes, "Stop! You're being too loud." As I'm saying, they're moving the little levers and shit, like, but it's fun.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. How much painting have you been doing versus like printing?
I would say it's probably about 70% printing, 30% painting.
Mm-hmm.
But I have still done some painting, and I think that's the important bit.
I would give you partial credit. Yes, you still get credit. Yeah, it's a time. You're gonna have to buckle down on that painting front.
Yeah, I have February. Let's go.
That's what I keep telling myself also. Yeah, over here on my front, it has been the opposite. I also fell down a rabbit hole, but I fell down a hyper elite rabbit hole of golden armored boys. This here Custodes book is just so interesting to me. It's so simple. Like it is like the perfect foil to Gene Stealer cults, which are like a giant horde with mega complicated rules.
Big brain.
Yeah, and huge brain. And then Custodes are like this hyper elite force. Like the second most elite force in the game. With simple, straightforward rules. And not a whole lot of like crazy brain power or like mental load to play them. Like it's all macro strategy rather than micro strategy and memorization. And it's so different. And I really got hooked by that concept. And I ended up, like I've talked about it before, but I already accidentally had like a shocking number of Custodes. I bought one box of guards.
Custodes.
Yeah, oops, Custodes. I bought one box of guard for Kill Team like 4 years ago. And then someone else gave me a second box because they were just clearing out their hobby stuff and knew I had some Custodes, so they gave me those for free. And then, oh no, that's a lot of points. Whoops. So I decided I would just kind of push them along and see what happens with this new book coming out. I was like, yeah, I've been trying to get a paint scheme I liked for Custodes, so maybe I'll just like figure out a paint scheme and I'll come back and, work on Custodes later. And then I painted 1,000 points within 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. That's how that be.
Oops.
Custodes.
I designed a paint scheme and painted almost 1K in 2 weeks. I fell down the rabbit hole hard. And that's while HammerCon 2022 is looming over me. Like that moon from Zelda. Just staring down. And I'm not painting the AOS, just more Custodes. Yeah, it's been a time. Just, they're such detailed models that it does take a little bit of time to pick out the points on them, but there's so few of them that you get that tone-in hit for finishing a unit so quickly. Staggeringly quickly. And I think it only feels more poignant because, as I've talked about in the previous Hobby Progresses, recently I painted up roughly 500 points of orcs for a Crusade campaign. And for that 500 points, I had to paint 27 models. 27. For me to hit 1K with Custodes is 12. 12 models. It's just jarring.
Big difference, isn't it?
Yeah, it's jarring. I almost got whiplash when I realized how many I had painted and how many points I had sitting in front of me. There was also some printing. I printed Forge World Dreadnought for Custodes, and I printed myself a Blade Champion because I am not paying scalper prices.
Yeah, and there's not really a reason to buy Shadow Throne.
There is no reason to buy Shadow Throne, especially if you're a Custodes player.
Especially if you're a Jesus Occult player. There's not a whole lot in that book like that you just don't accidentally get from buying like the Start Collecting kits or like the Brood Coven. Like it's not a good value box.
Yeah, it doesn't work for anybody. So I just went ahead and printed myself up my own Blade Champion and printed myself one of the Forge World Dreadnoughts so I can round out the list. And It's coming along swimmingly. I'm looking at the last two pieces on my paint table now. I need to put the red on them and hit them with some washes, and they will be good to go. Custodes 1K in the book in no time. And if I didn't hit a family emergency, I probably would have painted 1K within a week. It was that fast. So I've just been wrapped up and looking forward. I'm kind of at a loss on what to do next, but don't worry, we'll be talking about that in the actual topic portion of the episode. All right, John. So we both got grabbed by, hobby interests. We heard the siren song of inspiration, and we're following it. But if we're going to spend a whole episode talking about the topic, we should probably try to narrow in on what we mean by, hobby interest. Like, how do you come across an interest? And we could give our own sort of experiences, but also some stuff that just like generally will sometimes grab people. So like for you, what does a hobby, like how do you know you've been hooked by a hobby interest?
So like for me, I absorb a lot of content about these different games. Like I'll like watch videos while I'm cooking or working on a project or whatever. Listen to podcasts on the way to work or on the way home. So I get to kind of absorb what's going on with these factions, and when I get hooked is when I hear something that makes me go, "Huh, that sounds very fun," or I really like that as a perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then I dig into it, right? Like I start reading articles, I follow the rabbit hole down until I make a decision of, oh no, I could actually like get these models, paint them, play them, and have this force as part of my roster of stuff I pull out to play with people. Because like I've reached the point with the hobby where I like to have lots of different options for playing games with people, because as the editions change, I don't like having one force that might be too good and play against someone's force who is not so good. I like having multiple things I can play. Also, I can't stick to one force because I'm a crazy person.
Yeah, you have to hop.
Yeah, I'm a hobby person. I hop between everything. I even do that with video games, right? Like I will follow a video game for like 2 months and then I'll hop to a new one or an old one sometimes. I feel like that's the same with me with this hobby, is I just pop wherever my interest is. Another one is that I will normally, like, depending on the books I'm reading or the movies I'm watching, like, I've been watching a bunch of cult movies and TV shows. I wonder why I like Jeans of their cult so much.
Yeah, it'll get you. Similarly, I also get pulled around by sort of like, I hate to use the word content, it sounds so sterile, but like videos and lore and stuff. At my job, there's a significant portion of time where I can listen to stuff while I'm still working. So I listen to like lore in the background or sort of like faction overviews, stuff like that. And if something particularly tickles me, it's dangerous. Like there are some lores I listen to and I think for most of them I go, huh, that's fun, but probably not for me. And then there are some that I listen to and go, oh, that's cool, but I could never play that faction. And then third, and by far most dangerous, oh no, I have to play the faction.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think a lot of it goes off of our different styles, right? Or like genre, like macro genres in a way. I generally like playing bad people. I've talked about it on the show before. I like playing bastards or like the antagonist in a lot of instances. And Joe, you're kind of the opposite, right? Like you kind of like playing the good guys.
Yeah, generally speaking, I like to play like the protagonists. And when I play antagonists, they have to be antagonists that like make sense and motivation, which is why I can't play chaos armies. Like I just lore wise, I cannot internally align with a faction whose goal is just like destruction and wanton suffering for the entirety of everything.
It's like turbo nihilism.
I hate nihilism.
Yeah, me too, but in a way that I want to play it and watch everybody kill it.
Like, I push past into absurdism. Welcome to the Orcs. That's my antagonist faction. Like, we have gone beyond. But yeah, I think there's something to that. Like, if it internally aligns with, like, your preferences and schema, you will be grabbed. And I think this is an example of it, because John got grabbed by the bastards that are, trying to lead a revolution, which, in many cases probably entirely justified, but also are bringing down Tyranids to kill everything. So,
On a slight tangent about that, one of the things I find fascinating about Gene Stealer Cult is that there are so many ways to write your own narrative for it, right? The overall thing is Gene Stealer falls on the ground, it comes up onto the planet, makes a cult does cult stuff, Tyranids eventually come. But how they get there, what happens along that path, is all completely up in the air. Some of these cults don't even know the Tyranids are actually what they're worshipping. Like, it is fascinating, and I find that interesting in a faction too. Is how much of my own story can I write and tell with this, right? And I find that in 40k, as an example, a lot of the factions already have a story written for them, so it makes it really easy to fall into, like Night Lords or Imperial Fists or Blood Angels or World Eaters. But the Xenos factions tend to be a little bit more open.
Yeah, and
I find that just incredibly good.
Yeah, I find that with Orcs also, that like the sky is the limit for what your motivations are. As long as somewhere in there you're crumping something, you're good. You're golden. It can be canon. And that definitely could appeal and could grab someone along in interest. But yeah, I think like there are also other ways to get grabbed. If you watch battle reports a lot, I could see, and you're a more mechanically minded person, I could see like an army's particular mechanics grabbing you real good. If you're a painter, models could get you bad,
Yeah.
Especially if you're like a competitive painter and there's just a beautiful range of sculpts. I could see that grabbing somebody really well and kind of like luring their eyes to it. There are a lot of ways to get there, but I think the most important thing for like you out there as listeners is to just recognize what normally does it for you, so you can find it or at least key in on it when it does start to sort of bubble up. Because that siren song's going to come up eventually, and if you could recognize it, you can then make a decision on whether or not to follow it. Because, I mean, that is sort of a big question, right, John? Like, when you feel the interest pop up, do you turn your head and, go along?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people end up having this choice of between, well, I already have a project I'm working on, because we're all hobbyists, we all have projects on our table at all times. Do I follow it? Like, do I finish this project before going forward? And it means you got to ask yourself some questions, like, can I reasonably start this project without feeling bad about it? Will it add a positive motivation to my overall artistry or hobby? Or is this just a fancy that I'm going to get rid of in 2 weeks, right? And so, like, for me, what I do to test that is I'll normally, like, now that I have a printer, I'll print something similar to it. I will take the time to print it, and then I'll, like, prime it, and then I'll paint it, and then I'll look at it, and then I'll read a bunch of the stuff on the internet about it, and, like, the books about the faction, and then I'll sit on it for, like, a week. I just will not print or buy or anything like that for that faction for a week. And if I still go, man, I really want that thing, like, after I've stopped engaging with it actively, I know it's time. I gotta pull the trigger and just dive in.
Yeah, I think testing yourself could be very helpful.
Yes.
Otherwise, you might throw money at something that just, it's fleeting. It's infatuation rather than love.
Yeah, and I've done that so many times. Like, I have played almost every faction 40k because of that. Some of them I spent a lot of money on to get into and play for 2 months and then went, I actually think this sucks, and I only really liked these 3 rules in this codex. And then the codex changed, and I went, oh, I don't actually like this.
Yeah, for me, I would test it however it works. for y'all out there. For me, normally I will read through the fluff in the codex and see if that stirs anything. And if it does, I'll then go to the model section and see if that stirs. Because I'm also a bit of a model snob, and if the models aren't good throughout the range, I would probably just turn off from the faction despite my interest, and then I move on. But if those are good, I then move on to trying to paint something, like a small something, maybe one squad of foot troops or like a hero or something. You know what I mean? With a small investment where, if I don't like it, I'll put it down. And now if at that point I am still super interested, or in the best case, I am only more interested by having painted something, and then I know it's an interest that's going to stick. And that's what happened with Custodes. Like, that was the exact stepwise function that I went through for Custodes. I tried to paint these Custodes a couple of times before. Once when I was brand new to the hobby, and then I tried a different paint scheme and didn't really like it. So I thought I'd repaint them a third time. And this time, I landed on something that I really liked. So I just decided to run with it, and then I blinked and I did 1,000 points of painting, which never happens. Painting is something I have to work at, and this happened effortlessly. And that's when I knew it was an interest that would stay. And
I mean, it's also important to recognize what type of interest it is, right? Like for me, I have two really different types of interests when it comes to armies. It's either something that I want to collect and just have on the shelf and occasionally take off and play, and it's a slow burn project I slowly work on. Beasts of Chaos have been that way for me for a while. And Guard is becoming that way too, right? Where I have the stuff, I'll print stuff, I'll be like, that's neat, I like it, and I'll paint it. I'll be like, oh yeah, I like looking at that. And then I'll pull up to play every once in a while. Then I have other ones in which I will fixate on, build, paint, play a shitload of for 3 months, put it on the shelf, and then 3 months from the point that I put it on the shelf, I either go, I want to sell that to somebody, or I go, or give it to somebody, or I go, I'm going to take that off and play another game with it. And that's how I test things too, right?
Yeah. I think the thing that's important to illustrate here is different people have different ways to kind of confirm the interest.
Yeah.
There are as many ways to do this as there are people in the hobby. So the big recommendation we can give here is figure out how you do it. Because you probably already have a system for this, even if you don't realize it. It's in there. So root around until you find what the steps are. And I would always recommend walking through your process when you have a new interest or a new fancy. And then if you get through your testing phase, if you run through whatever your process is and you're still like, man, I love these funky faction or these models or whatever, then I would almost always tell you to follow the interest rather than whatever your current project is. Just almost always.
Yeah.
Because, this is a hobby at the end of the day, right? The whole point is to get as much joy and fun out of it as we can with these little plastic war Barbies and have as much fun as you can wrench out of 2 hours a night. And even if you could only play it a few times a year, you're trying to get a little reprieve. And if this interest is what will give you most of that, I'd say follow it.
And I think there's something to be said about having that interest sparks a level of interest and engagement with the hobby that allows you to try out new techniques or maybe get new paints or do these new things that when you go back to your old projects that you were working on, you now have a bigger and better toolbox to tackle that project with. I have had it happen to me so many times where I will start a project and be like, yeah, I can do this. And then I realize that I'm kind of missing a few techniques to really be able to do this in a way that I like. And then I'll be like, oh, and I'll put it off and I'll start another project like a kill team or something. And I'll try out those techniques on a smaller scale and go, oh, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought it was. And then I'll transfer it to the bigger project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
And
think that's a great way to build your toolbox fairly quickly.
yeah, and it shows a lot of growth, right?
Yeah.
I love watching Vince Ventrilla's videos on like watching him grow through painting different things throughout the hobby, and just most of his content. It's choice. If you haven't gone there, go watch it. It's great. But it really shows like the actual feeling of the hobby, right? Like the hobby is not I got a model and I'm immediately an expert at painting this and look how great I am. I'm sure there's some people out there that are that way. I'm definitely not that way.
Same over here. Can't do that.
Yeah, and so like I've improved painting over the 10 years I've engaged with this hobby by finding oh, I really like this faction I read a book about. I'm going to paint a model. I really like this faction that I was playing a game with. I'm going to buy a model to play in my next game and paint it and then try new things as it goes. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't just allow myself to kind of pursue those new interests. If I just stayed on the same thing that I started with, boy howdy, I'd be playing Guardsmen and Necrons, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even play fantasy. Like,
Oh, you'd be missing out. Yeah, I mean, when you have the chance to get childlike wonder back for just a little bit, I would advise you not to pass it up. Like, just probably shouldn't. Um, it happens rarely, and if you could find one that sticks, God, it's gonna make your next like 2 months of hobbying incredible. And not only just for you, like if you have this sort of excitement and you have truly like found Excalibur and you are working through your faction and you are super excited about them and like you're just itching to get them on the table, it is contagious. That level of
absolutely.
excitement is entirely contagious.
Yes.
And almost all of us are in a play group of some type. If you are that excited in the play group, you might get other people excited about their own stuff. And
Yeah.
now that's the golden goose. Like now you're not only making your time more fun, you are making their time more fun.
Yeah. I'll use Seth as an example, right? Like our editor. We have all that new Eldar stuff coming out, right? And so he has just been super excited for months about it. Like he's just like, I'm getting all the Eldar stuff. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna play so much Eldar. It's gonna be phenomenal. And at first I was like, yeah, it's cool. I'm glad Eldar's getting some stuff, but I'm like not really vibing with 40k right now. And then as time went on, I was like, oh no, I'm vibing with 40k right now. And then Gene Stealers came out, and I was like, oh no, I'm vibing with 40k right now. And the Joe goes, I'm gonna play Custodes, and I'm over here going like Vince McMahon, oh no, like I'm making a cult.
That meme is going to be created by Tanner in like 0.2 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh God, have you shared the Custodes Gene Stealer cult memes?
I need to share more of them. They're so good.
So good. That was part of the excitement being contagious.
Yeah, is the memes. Like we have a little group that we all send memes at each other and just in a weird way vibe check each other's interests in all these different like armies and factions and stuff, and it's great. But yeah, like the excitement becomes infectious. We all want to start playing games, and it ends up leading to us taking the effort to actually like plan and schedule events, right? Like it builds up the excitement to be like, okay, I'm going to take the time out of our busy adult lives to set up some time to play these toy soldiers, which like we all want to do in theory. But sometimes you get like 1,000 different things going on in life, and you're like, but then like, I have to figure like food and like driving and like, and then all of that gets thrown out the window when you're like, dirt bikes, go karts, and Joe's over here going, space cops.
That's it, space cops.
Listen, the Custodes are nothing but the space cop janitors of the galaxy.
I heavily disagree, and I will crush your little cult for your insolence.
Listen, have you seen the movie The Warriors and or the movie Mad Max? Because you best be ready.
I do not think this is going to end well for you, but let's tussle. Yeah, it's just so nice. It's so nice, especially like for us. Our gaming group is spread out everywhere between like Lexington, Kentucky, and further south, a little further south than that, all the way up to Cleveland, Ohio. Like,
Yeah.
getting everyone together takes effort.
Yeah,
Whole lot of effort.
the KFW corridor is quite a large tract of land.
Yeah, yeah. So like when you have people having to come from Columbus and Cleveland and down in central Kentucky, and like we all meet up normally somewhere in Cincinnati, like it takes a lot of effort to organize that. And this excitement makes that effort much easier to do because everyone's just chomping at the bit. So like when we have to make like an hour and a half, sometimes 4.5 hour drive, people are just like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. Like I'm ready if this is what it takes to play these toys.
And like for me, it transcends the fucking hobby, and I start making like playlists of songs to go with these assholes. And I listen to them on the way to play these games. Like, yes, I'm gonna go play against Joe's Custodes for a Saturday. I'm gonna leave on a Friday night, and I'm gonna listen to 16 Tons for an hour and a half while I drive to his house.
I knew you were gonna say 16 tons.
Like, it's amazing, and it makes it this very exciting, like, treat, right? Like to have it's kind of like when your parents used to go, hey, we're going to Chuck E. Cheese, and that car ride to Chuck E. Cheese feels so fucking long, but it's also so goddamn exciting. Like you're vibrating in your seat as you roll up to this place with cardboard pizza and a robot mouse, and you're like, play skee ball. Like,
Yeah, for me, it is around here. The best equivalence I could give you is that there was a place, John, called Johnny's Toys. All right. And it was a big toy store that was just a land of whimsy and enchantment. And inside this toy store was a castle that they had built with like beautiful colors all over it. Huh?
That's not a large castle.
I mean, it was huge if you were 5.
It's made by Dorn, but continue.
And it was wonderful. It had all this art on it. And inside the castle was the coolest of treasures. And once a year, you would get a key sent to your house on your birthday, where you got a key to the castle. And you could go to Johnny's Toys and open the big door and go inside the enchanted castle to pick out a toy for your birthday. And like, you never got the key and went to Johnny's Toys that day. You always had to wait. And that wait was like the most high-inducing thing as a kid. And this is just that on a longer scale because I have to wait months. But it only makes it more fun when I get there.
Yeah. It is the fact that us a bunch of 30-year-old men quickly just go, I am 7 again. I am like these dumb plastic warp Barbies turned me into a 7-year-old getting super hyped about Mountain Dew and pizza, so I go play with my buds. We're gonna play Halo 2.
Split screen, hardcore, no breaks, no sleep, all the way through.
Like us, adults who are in bed way earlier than we used to be are staying up till 5 in the fucking morning playing with Plastic Army Men, waking up 3 hours later the next day to start figuring out how to get home going, shit.
Yeah, normally even on the weekends, I'm normally like hopping off like Discord or whatever around 1:30. Somehow though, we play Warhammer until 4:30 or 5 consistently.
It's to the point where we're like slap happy at the end of it, and we like me and Joe were just making the dumbest jokes at each other, and like we will remember it the next day and be like, that wasn't that funny, but at the time we're fucking dying. We're like, it's like that wheezing meme.
There are no rules discussions. It's all grunts. It's like the nerdiest episode of Tool Time that you've ever seen. It's a delightful feeling. And that excitement, God, I wish I could like bottle it and have it every day.
Well, and the point that like I'm trying to get to with all of this super long drawn out explanation is that
we're following our interests, John.
Yes, is that we wouldn't get to those points if we didn't just go, this thing I really like, I'm getting really into. I should just follow that.
Yeah, like I think it will give you these sort of moments that you will remember forever.
Yeah, and like it's worth the month or two of working on it for 2 hours a night, a couple nights a week, to get something done so that you can go have a weekend of fun with your buds that you're going to talk about and remember like 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, or talk about on a podcast with your best bud and be like, ha 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 ha, we had a great time at this dumb thing where we drank Monster Energy drinks and ate shitty pizza.
And it was ambrosia of the gods. But, I mean, okay, so let's say we've maybe made the pitch that you are going to chase the dragon, okay? You're going to try to go on this goose chase and get this thing done. What advice can we give you to do that? Like, I think this is how I want to wrap it up. I want to give some, like, practical advice as someone who has done this before so that you will be successful in finding your golden goose. So I think first thing that you're going to want to do, if you've decided that you're going to follow this feeling of ska music and cheese sticks, is you've got to figure out like what your actual project is going to be, like your scope. Like, oh, if you're like, for me with Custodies, I told myself I was going to work towards 1,000 points. Like that was the scope of what I was going to work towards with my excitement. So it gave me a goal to reach for that was tangible. And if you don't set that, you might aim a little too high to be achievable, which I think we've all done before.
Yeah. And I think it's also like, it's okay to look at when you set these goals that this is step one, then I'm going to reassess how I feel. Like you don't create the end goal when you start this. You go, I'm going to set the next step, and I'm just going to focus on getting to that step and enjoy that time. And if you get to that step and you get to decide you want to stop, then you just stop, right? But by making that first step smaller and not larger, you don't accidentally spend a bunch of money you don't mean to. You prevent burning out on the interest. Lots of different things. Because I have been that person who went, the first time I actually started Gene Stealer Cult, because this is not my first foray into the cult. The first time I started Gene Stealer Cult, I got my tax return, and I was like in my early 20s, and I went, boy howdy, I'm going to spend $400 on this Gene Stealer Cult army. Bought it all. Bought the whole thing. And then built about half of it, painted about a quarter of what I built, and then I went, yo, I don't like this.
The avarice. The unmitigated gall.
And was so upset with myself I didn't look back at the faction until now. Now, I've got a different approach, and I'm a different person now than I was then. And so I'm approaching it differently and playing differently, and a bunch of stuff dropped that is different from what I originally wanted to play. And it's better, and I'm keeping myself manageable through this, right? Like I'm not buying an entire 2,000 point force and trying to build it and paint it in like a month and getting overwhelmed. I'm like starting with a squad of dudes, a character, and like a couple of go-karts and bikes.
Yeah, you have an achievable goal that if you get there and it's all still going well, you can push on, or you can put a little bookmark in it for now and circle back later. But you'll get the feeling of accomplishment regardless, which is just great.
I think it's important to remember that like not all of these have to be army projects too, right? Like you could
No, not at all.
Yeah, like you could print a unit of say Custodies, right? Like Shadowkeeper's Custodies, and you could print it, paint it, and you could be like, man, I don't want to paint the rest of this force. Like I just want to paint these dudes and be done with it. You turn it into a kill team. Or you can take it and you can turn it into a little diorama that maybe they're guarding like a entity that they have captured and are bringing back to the vaults. And so you print out some sort of like weird amalgamation monster that you then paint up and turn into a little diorama piece that you can put on your desk or your shelf. Like it opens up to a lot of options. Is to just follow it, and then see where you go with it, and let it happen naturally.
Yeah, you'll end up somewhere, but wherever you end up is going to be cool. So I wouldn't be too strict on it, but just give yourself something to shoot for.
Yeah.
And then also, I think you want to think about timeline there. Because
I was just going to get into that. Like, it's good to set yourself, like, weekly goals and not, like, just go wherever.
For however long. I mean, if that works for you, have at it. But I think for most people, that could be hard. Consider your timeline and what you're trying to accomplish, whatever your goal is. And can you get it done in that timeline? And also, make sure this is, when you're looking at your timeline, it's also a great time to just do a quick check that you're not, neglecting other responsibilities that you have. Whatever that is. There's a million possible responsibilities in the world. Family stuff, work stuff, other commitments you got going. Sometimes when you are following a hobby high and you're trying to find the enjoyment, you might stay on it a little to your detriment. So this is when you're reviewing your timeline forward, it's a great time to just double check that there's no conflicts of that nature.
Yeah, if you're 5 days deep into a hobby binge and all you've been eating is Papa John's pizza you have delivered to the house, and you haven't been to the grocery store and run out of food, and your partner's going, "Hey, we're out of food." Maybe take a break and go to the grocery store.
Just possibly, just probably good.
I'm not saying that out of personal experience or anything.
Damn it, John, you garbage person.
Who let me get this far?
I don't know. You're just 3 fucking raccoons in a trench coat. What is it? Who taught you how to type? So many hands. Okay. Yes, you should not eat Papa John's pizza for 5 days to your partner's detriment.
Hey, listen, you don't buy it every day. You just get the 2 for $6, and you keep the other one in the fridge, and then you heat it back up in the oven, and then you got meals for 2 days for $12, and you go on to the next one. Life hacks, food hacks. Welcome to our new channel, How to Survive College.
I could do a podcast on how to live poor. Many tricks.
A fresh new episode dropping next week.
But yeah, just do a little reality check with yourself, because following the fun is good, but this is just your hobby, and if you've got real life stuff going on that you need to do, well then, do that. And this will let you schedule around it, so you can hopefully just do both.
And on the flip side, if you're dealing with a lot of real life shit, right? A ton of big stuff going on, and you got to really hammer it in. Be honest with yourself that maybe you don't need to paint models on that little bit of free time you have, and to maybe play something more decompressing. But also, if you find yourself not enjoying playing video games or decompressing that way, maybe try painting a little bit when you've got a lot of stuff going on, when you have a little bit of free time, and see if it helps you refocus in your outside of hobby life, because that often helps me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes you just need to have a moment to sort of pull out the emotional compass and reorient yourself. And then once you do that, you can get your bearings and keep on going. Otherwise, you're just going to get caught up in it, and nobody wants that. But I think if you're able to do that, if you do those things, you'll be so much more likely to get to the turbo fun outcome of your of following the interest and doing whatever it is that you're just yearning to do. Because really, that's what we want. We want you guys to not just have these crazy hobby interests and to follow them, but to actually get to find them. To catch the dragon, to find the goose, and get the fun. And a little bit of structure can help you get there. And for us, we've been talking about podcast episode ideas and what's going on, and what we should maybe be talking about. And there's some topical stuff that's knocked around in our conversations that we could try to bring up. And yeah, I guess we could do those things. But to be honest, y'all, I just want to talk about some Golden Boys right now. I just want to talk about Golden Boys. And John, would I be correct in assuming that you just want to talk about Mad Max Fury Road?
Yeah, I want all of our listeners to witness me as I huff chrome paint and paint dirt bikes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to be for an audio format, but I'm here with you, man. I support you.
I mean, this is going to be a thing I keep working on in between feverishly waiting for Total Warhammer 3.
Yeah, yes.
So, painting in between load screens. Come on, let's go.
So because of our interest, like instead of doing the topical stuff, over the next 2 episodes, we're just going to talk about those 2 forces that we've been having so much fun painting up and learning about. Because, I mean, this is a podcast where from everything we've gotten from you guys at feedback, you really just want to hear what we're excited about and have us help you learn some stuff while you do whatever you're currently doing. You might be at work trying to get through the day. You might be at your hobby table trying to do some building or painting or printing yourselves. But wherever you all are out there, you just kind of want some people to talk to. So for us, instead of chasing the sort of popular topics, we're just going to tell you about why we enjoy these factions so much. We're going to talk a lot about the fluff of them and sort of the concepts of why we think they're cool. And we'll also touch a little bit on the rules, as we've done before, because people seem to like that. Having just a little bit of crunch, not too much.
Yeah, a little bit of crunch is like a texture element in this dish.
Yeah, without being overwhelming and like cutting your cheeks or, making your tongue sore.
Yeah, we're not a bag of Doritos. Like
No. A little bit of crunch. And that's going to be the next 2 episodes. We can't, talk about following your interests and then not follow our own interests on the podcast. So we're going to try to be a little more upfront about it. And I'm real excited to talk about them because, God, do I have thoughts. This lore book, it gave me some revelations that I did not really consider before.
Yeah, and if you all, as the listeners, want something specifically explained to you about these factions, or you want to know more, or you want our takes on anything, or really you're just you've been searching the internet for other people who've talked about this thing you want to know about, shoot us a message, and we'll see if we can include it on the episode for Gene Stealer Cults or Custodes, whichever one, and just hammer in. What do you want to hear from us about these factions? If you don't give us direction, we'll just yammer on for like an hour or so.
Oh yeah, we will. I mean, that's fine. We'll scattershot, but if you have a key target, you should probably call in the coordinates.
I mean, I'll just talk about dirt bikes for like 2 hours. I don't care. But like, if you
John,
want to
what's
hear
your favorite
about
model of dirt bike?
what,
You like a Honda Man, Kawasaki?
I just like the Nebulous, like the Royal dirt bike. I see a dirt bike and a little part of my brain goes, doesn't matter what kind.
Wait. Okay. I'll suss that out, I guess. God. I was ready to have a conversation about real dirt bikes, and John was just like, nope.
Yeah, you can. My brain's a terrifying random place that I don't know how you deal with me, Joseph.
Carefully. But yeah, send it in. And if you're really excited about these episodes, maybe leave us a rating or like the podcast. That helps a lot. And if you're also wanting to like share some excitement with your friends and your friend group, maybe share this episode to them. If they also enjoy nebulous royal dirt bikes said by 3 raccoons in a trench coat. But don't you worry, in the meantime, we'll be doing show notes for these crazy excited episodes. And that's been all of our thoughts. Bonafide Kentucky Fried. We'll see you all in the next episode.
Yow!